Hello and welcome to Game Changer by Connors Coaching. You can show your support to us by logging in, liking and subscribing, and leaving a comment about what inspires you the most today. We are created to inspire with topics about positivity, coaching, personal development, and more. And we go live every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. with guests the second and fourth week of the month, and together we get inspired so that every day we can wake up to the best version of ourselves. And we are joined today by a very special guest, my very good friend, Rachel Marie. She's the owner of OptimizedOffice.com. There's a link for her business in the description. She's my LinkedIn sister, and we resonated with each other so much that we became friends in real life. She got a master's in business administration just recently, and we are so thrilled to have you here with us. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again. It's my second time, so I
Yeah.
feel lucky to be here. Yeah.
We are very lucky to have you. In fact, you are doing a little extra work for us and doing me a personal favor by being here today. Well, in case people missed your first appearance, which they should go back and watch after this, but in case they missed your first appearance, tell me a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, so the Optimized Office started out as a systems and processes consultation for businesses, mainly small businesses. And over the past 4 years, it's really grown more into a focus on workplace. I used to call it bringing joy to the workplace, and I was told that it was kind of cheesy. And so I thought, well, maybe I should make it more professional. I don't know. I might bring it back to joy of the workplace, though, because really, the idea is to come together with employers and employees and create these systems and processes collaboratively that create a place where there's mutual benefit and where people can enjoy going to work again. There's purpose, and employers can enjoy the whole reason why they went into business in the first place. So I call it a few different things. One of the things I call it is workplace alignment.
If you imagined an ideal client out there who just needed your services right away, and you were the best person to hire them, what would that business look like?
It would be smaller businesses. I like to get in and really gain a holistic perspective. And I think the best way to do that is to deal with smaller businesses. The most employees that I've dealt with at a time are 50 employees. So I would say 50 and below. I think that's a good range. And as far as the business, the really it spans industries. I mean, I've had one nonprofit, the rest for profits, one B Corp, which is a benefit corporation, from tourism to landscaping to psychiatrists to there's a lot of variety. However, I will say, Daniel, I don't think you know this even because it's a recent development, so it's a surprise, but I am recently working with Prepio. They're a software onboarding company, and going to be doing some advisory services for larger companies. Same exact type of thing that I'll be offering, but with Prepio and more focused on the management workshops, et cetera, for larger companies. So I'm really excited about that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic, and it sounds exciting. Um, well, you are here to share with us today, and our topic of the day is the art of managing up. So, what do you want to tell us about that? How do you define it?
Well, the simplest way, because if you were to Google it, there's all kinds of different definitions. It's like, no one really agrees on exactly the same thing. So the simplest way that I think of it is basically managing your relationship with your boss or your client, because I think there's a way to manage up for clients as well. And it's based on the mindset of really figuring out what your circle of influence or control is, and then taking control within that circle of control that you have, and influence. and helping your boss to manage you. There's two different ways to go about it. There's helping to manage your boss, and then helping to manage yourself for your boss. And both of those things are managing up.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I as a coach, I deal with the other end of it, right? Like the employee side of it. You're dealing with it kind of from the business and the culture side of it. But from someone who's going to pick that up, you're setting expectations, you're setting values, you're telling them how to communicate with you effectively. And that's just a win-win because they're going to
Yes,
communicate with you more effectively and they're going to be able to be entitled and empowered to communicate. You're entitled and empowered to communicate with them more effectively too. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it
And it
makes
takes the
perfect sense.
control. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
No, I think that what you're saying is that it's mutually beneficial, and for the employee, what it does is, oftentimes, especially now, businesses, they're so busy, and the managers are busier. We read about it all the time. There's burnout. Um, so the this is a way sometimes employees will come in, especially when they're new, and what you'll hear them say is, I wasn't trained well, or I don't even know what's expected of me, or I don't, I don't have a performance evaluation. And what I say is, if you don't know if what's expected of you hasn't been lined out, then that's an opportunity, because guess what? You get to create something and propose that that's the thing that's expected of you,
It gets really exciting when you have that epiphany. That is a very exciting opportunity. That's why this is one of
Mhm.
my favorite topics ever that we've ever had. So I'm thrilled to be bringing it with you. So who's ideal for managing up? Is it just a specific range of people like support staff, or are there other groups that are able to do this?
Yeah, I think everyone can. I think even, like I mentioned, I think you can even do this as a solopreneur. If you're a micro business, you have clients, I think you can even use it in that way. The most, what I've most helped people with is from an administrative support standpoint, helping to manage up, because those are the areas that are sometimes get the murkiest. Sometimes, actually, oftentimes, a supervisor or a boss might not really be aware of how to manage administrative support and what exactly they do, and everything. So that's an area where I think it especially is helpful. But I think everyone can do it. And I think once you get in the habit of doing it, like I said, it comes back to that mindset. And once you're thinking in that way, it actually expands out into your personal relationships too. How you deal with people, how you deal with customer service. Once you have, because to manage up, you have to be thinking from the other person's perception standpoint as well. And so
Yeah.
once you do that, I think it helps in all areas.
So it's kind of built-in emotional intelligence as well, because you have that relational awareness or that relational empathy going on. That makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense too. Well, what are some of the benefits for doing this for an employer who's in, if an employer has a culture or fostering this kind of attitude of managing up, what are some of the benefits that employer might see?
The most obvious benefit is engagement. Everyone's talking about engagement these days. And what better way to foster engagement than to empower employees to take an active role in managing the expectations that you have for them and vice versa. And so it creates this autonomy and independence that I think a lot of employees are really seeking and craving. And so engagement, number one by far. Uh, but the other thing is that it also increases efficiencies and reduces errors. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but those are the main things right there. But above all, I would say the biggest benefit is that it helps to have the managers are historically and currently just overworked. You've got way too many things going on. I'm
Yeah.
waiting for myself. So yeah, so the managers, it is able to help them refocus on their best, highest function, the thing that they're there to do that no one else can do optimally. So it helps them to really narrow down on their focus.
Yeah, and by kind of giving them that clue, you're taking some of the weight off of them, and
Mhm.
also some of the weight that they might be putting on you that you're not wanting to take on, you know? So it's a win-win situation, it seems like to me.
Absolutely. And you just hit on something, and that is that sometimes, and again, sometimes there's a little bit of a negative connotation when people talk about managing their boss as if my boss is clueless, they don't know what they're doing, da 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 da. And I don't see it like that at all. The way that I see it is there are things that the employee is simply better cut out to do. That's why they're there, and than the things that the boss is there to do. And so I think that it helps really maintain those lines. And like you said, it helps the employee out because then it just simply makes their job better. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's kind of like, I mean, I'm assuming that there are bosses out there who have a lot of boundary issues where that could cross, but for the most part, if you do this right, it seems like you don't risk running over those. Is that your experience, or can you speak more to that?
Yeah, I definitely the boundaries are important and in a few different ways. One, you have to enter into this gingerly because if you take the stance, a hard stance, and I've seen this happen before where people really take the managing their boss a little too seriously, and tell them kind of say this is what you're going to do. So I mean, there's an art to sort of to figuring out the way that you're communicating together. On the other hand, you can go the other way where the boss is saying, wow, this is so great, I'm going to go ahead and put some more stuff on your plate. So if you're part of managing up is managing yourself, it's managing your own time, your own expectations, and then explaining and really communicating back, this is the time that I have and let's prioritize because I'm not going to be able to take on all of these things and then meet your expectations. So I mean, a huge part of this is communication and, like you said, boundaries in both directions.
It's fabulous. And so we've really kind of broached, my other question was really what are the benefits of the employees? We've kind of talked about that, but if you could summarize that for those people out there who are considering taking this tactic going forward, what would that be?
Well, the most obvious one, and the thing that I think a lot of people think of, is promotion, raises, an upward trajectory. And even if, for whatever reason, maybe you're in a company that doesn't have a lot of uh, room for growth or promotions or anything. But still, if you can do this, you can also have control over your resume. So as you're managing up and as you're taking control and ownership over what it is that you do, then that's also you're designing your own future. Basically, you're designing what you can offer to the next place. So either way, no matter how you slice it, it's going to help you in that way. And beyond that, it's developing a relationship with your boss, better working relationship with your supervisor can only lead to good things. Better connection, better, again, comes back to the future growth. Um, but more than anything, I think it does come back to that purpose, the autonomy that you have. I don't think anyone likes to be micromanaged, and this is a way to help avoid micromanagement from a supervisor.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it takes a little bit of stress off of you as well. In addition to the stress it takes off of the manager, but it also gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of empowerment, and it shows leadership potential as well as and demonstrates leadership potential because if you can lead yourself, that's a skill set that most people don't even have. Most managers don't even have that, right?
Yes, and you just hit on something. So this is also a passion of mine. The whole concept of vanishing up. I think it's huge, and part of it falls within a larger category, and that is creating leaders out of everyone. Everyone along the hierarchy can be a leader. It's not just for upper management, and this is a form of really developing leadership in everyone.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, we've talked a lot about the benefits of it. let's talk about how we do it. So how do we do it? Tell us how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so as you know, I mean, every place is different, every situation is different. But if you start with thinking of it back, like I said, in those two ways, you think of managing oneself and then managing the needs of the boss. And I always say to start with yourself first, because that's, you want to start with where you have the most control. And um, the the less structure that's in place around your position, the more opportunity that you have to create that. So, for example, one way to do it is, like I mentioned before, there are a lot of places where they don't really have a succinct job description. There are a lot of places where, lack of clarity is always ranks high among the complaints of employees in a lot of places. Not always in every company, but usually in surveys and stuff it does. So the first step is writing out what is it that you currently do? What is it that you believe your tasks are and your expectations? What would you like to add to that? And put together a proposal. That's one way. This is or depending on the situation, if your boss is super busy and you know that they're just going to be okay with this. Here's Sally, here Bob. This is what I, am going to do. Let me know if you want anything to be different about that. So that's one way, is setting your own your own tasks and then getting approval on that. The other way is setting your own performance metrics. I mean, how many places, again, you have so many employees saying, I'm not even really sure what I don't know what my performance metrics are. I don't know it's never been set. And so maybe someone says, and this is what I've done in every position that I ever had when I was employed, I would say, okay, this is what I want to do. By the end of this month, I want to hit this mark, whatever it might be. And if I don't, then this is what I commit to do. So I would set my own, because again, what it comes down to for me is I don't want anyone else telling me what to do, to be frank. So so it worked both ways. I create my own performance metrics. I share this, and then that's one way of, like I said, not being micromanaged. So those are two top ways to manage your own self. And then in terms of your boss, what I like to call syncing, it's a team syncing or syncing with your boss. Literally, you're sitting down, having a conversation and asking, almost interviewing, and seeing, number one, what are your communication preferences? So, for example, I have also done this often where people, again, managers are busy. They oftentimes do not want to be asked every time they walk by your office or every time they walk by your desk, whatever the case is, pinging little questions. And so if you sit down and ask, what's your preference? Do you like to be asked throughout the day things to follow up on? Do you like a list? I can create, so I've created many custom lists and spreadsheets, whatever it is that is most easily used for the two of you. And what that does is, I think everyone has had the frustration of maybe lack of response from a boss when you need to have some approval or some information, some feedback. What this does is it manages the expectations for both of you, because now you've entered into a commitment based on a discussion, not based on assumptions or anything. And so you're determining, how do we communicate? And within that, what are the boundaries? How late is too late to call? Do I call outside of office hours? All of these different things. So I'll stop there to let you ask any questions. Or
I'm just, while you're talking, I'm remembering my past lives, because it feels so familiar to me. And this is, again, this is a topic I've been passionate about for a very long time. And I think that your approach is very fresh. It's very thorough, and it's very holistic. And I can't, I have no questions at this point. Um, well, let's get back on topic. Sorry.
oh no.
I really was. I was envisioning. I was just like thinking, oh yeah, I did that, and I did this, and um, if you were an employer, How would you go about encouraging this kind of behavior in your employees?
Well, yeah, and that's a really good point that sometimes you have to. Not everyone naturally feels empowered, and sometimes people have come from companies that are very uh, more hierarchical in nature and have more of a top-down model. So, um, the first step is being aware of it, and then simply being open about it and saying, I mean, I think that I like to reduce meetings as much as possible unless they're really important. But I think this would be a good meeting material to come together and say, you are empowered to take control of your destiny here, so to speak, in this role. Um, and let's talk about the boundaries. I think that's the most important thing. Or what are the parameters? They're going to be different based on the position, based on the company. Um, and so, uh, for example, these things X, Y, and Z. Um, Go ahead and do these things. You don't require approval. You don't require review, anything like that. Go ahead and make your own performance metrics and then show them to us, or this kind of thing. So I think it's as simple as that to begin with. It's not that simple moving forward, but to start with, it's that conversation. One thing that will shut it down faster than anything is when the leadership, official leadership, will get being defensive. I think is one of the top ways that it gets shut down. And oftentimes we're all human. Managers are human. Everyone's human, and in order to take the most control as possible as an employee for doing this, you have to remember that as well, and remember that there's a way to communicate and a way to understand that you're dealing with someone human. But you're talking about from the employer side. So yeah, on the employer side, it's really being self-aware and continuing to come back as a management group, I think, in a leadership group, and talk through active listening, for
Yeah.
example.
Well, and I think it's also important to remember, and I think it's easy for you and I to talk about this because we're entrepreneurs. Like we see the organization from the outside in. Um, but every manager, they also have someone that they report to. They're also an employee. They also have an opportunity to manage up. In fact, that's probably one of the key things that sets most managers apart in terms of being successful or not in that role. Like that's what leadership looks like. So by demonstrating these skills as an employee, you're demonstrating you're capable in that leadership role. But more so, if you're at the very top echelons of the company, you're going to have to do some things in order to create a structure that's safe for that kind of effort to be put forward. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say, is that you know you need to have a common value around the human process, that around the fact that you know title is just a couple of words strung together, and that at the end of the day we all go home, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then sometimes, there are situations where you know, I always think if you have a complaint, if there's a complaint about something, that usually oftentimes there's a way to resolve it. And there's a series of steps to go through to get to that point. There are some times when you have someone in that organization, even and we've all known these people, there might be from the very top, maybe there's a desire to empower people. Maybe there's a desire to have this culture where managing up is celebrated. But if you have even one person in that chain that finds it sort of offensive, or finds it, they feel like they're, for whatever reason, they have an issue with it, that can cause a complete breakdown right there. And so, yeah, I think everyone has to be participating and
Yeah, and
on
it
board.
can also create kind of culture shock, right? Like if you're in one department and your manager is totally accepting of managing up, and you go to another department and that manager is Very old school.
Yeah.
Then it can feel very stifling, and it can create actively disengaged employees who are working against the interests of the employer. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, there are some risks. There are some risks involved, but the rewards are definitely worth it, it seems. Well, if
Yeah.
someone, yeah. Well, I have one final question, and then
Yeah.
I wanna be respectful of your time and thank you for being here. Um, but if someone was just getting started in this idea of managing up, if there was just someone out there who was just going to get started, what would be one thing to just focus on to get started on this journey?
I think it would be so if they're an employee looking to manage up, and I think the first step is, like I said, starting with managing yourself. And the first step with that would be taking inventory of what are all of the parameters and expectations that and then what are the ones that you don't know that are unclear and that you need to know. That's the first step. And then within that is also kind of drawing your own little Venn diagram of the things that you want to do, the things that the company needs you to do, and the things that you're really good at. And those overlapping, then you can come up with including in those lists the things that you want to advocate for yourself to be able to add to that list. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And it kind of reminds me of our previous episode of Ikigai. So your whole life's purpose. So go back and check that episode out if you're watching this. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
well, Rachel, it has truly been a pleasure to have you here with us today, and I can't wait to have you back again in the future. Rachel and I are collaborating on more to be announced, to be decided. I don't even know what's in the works for me. Rachel told me some stuff today, and I can't wait to hear more. But thank you so much, Rachel, for being here. Audience, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. If you've watched us this far, it means that maybe you found some value, and we would love to have you share that value with us. So if you wouldn't mind leaving us a comment and telling us what you found that was valuable in this episode today, that would go a long way towards helping us with future episodes. And tune in next week, live at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we bring you more about personal development and so much more. I'll see you then. Bye.